whatever you were gonna do. Cause it's time for Nick and the crew to tell you all the lore that you never knew about your favorite media, my dude. Stuff you're too lazy to look up, Nick and the boys gonna hook you up. From Halo and Batman to religious stuff, Lorecast is starting, so shut the hell up.
This is the start of the random and obscure lore of Fallout. We're starting with cats in the Fallout universe, so if you want to find more cohesive lore about the world as a whole, I definitely suggest Oxhorn or Shoddycast videos. Come back here when you're ready to hear the weird stuff. So, the first episode in this series was a basic look at the Fallout world, what it's like, what makes it different, why it's different, and what makes it stand out from our own timeline. But in order to talk about the cats of the Fallout universe, I believe we need to discuss radiation and dogs in Fallout. So, radiation in Fallout, the first section here. Research for this section comes from the CDC on cdc.gov and United States Environmental Protection Agency on epa.gov. Radiation in Fallout is weird. Usually, radiation goes away after a while, or rather, it becomes weaker and weaker. The time it takes is called a half-life. A half-life is a length of time it takes for half of the radioactive atoms of a specific radionuclide to decay. The CDC says a good rule of thumb is after 7 years, you will have less than 1% of the original amount of radiation. The EPA says that the nuclear fallout of the nuclear bombs tested in the United States from the 1950s and 1960s cannot be detected today. Some of the fallout contains cesium-137, which has a half-life of 30.17 years, while also containing iodine-131, which has a half-life of only 8 days. So why in Fallout does radiation still exist in such mass quantities 200 to 210 years after the bombs fell in 2077? The only excuse I can really think of is Fallout 4. The glowing sea from Fallout 4 is a continuously radioactive area of Boston that has been that way for nearly 200 years. The radioactive water gets evaporated into the clouds and then rained back down, making an endless cycle. But for Fallout, Fallout 2, and Fallout New Vegas, it takes place in the desert. You don't have too many radioactive environments, except for the lakes. But they also have pre-war radioactive barrels, which would be non-radioactive by now. Fallout 3 takes place in Washington, D.C., which is on the Potomac River, which can explain the evaporation and the rain, but we also have the issues of barrels and toxic sites in the ground as well. All this shows that most, if not all, of the radiation should be mostly gone, if not completely decayed by the time of Fallout 3, New Vegas, and 4 take place. Which leads to the next section, the mutations of dogs in Fallout. Dogs in the Fallout universe. Most of this research comes from the Fallout Wiki. If you've played Fallout in any capacity, you'll know that most dogs come irradiated and are savage animals. Only a handful are regular, best friend type of dogs. Dog meat from Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, and Rex from Fallout New Vegas, as well as some dogs from a dog breeder in Fallout 4, and probably more that I'm missing. But cats in the Fallout universe are only regular, non-irradiated house cats. And Fallout 4 is the first canonical viewing of cats. In Fallout 2, this is going to be naming all of the cats that we can find within Fallout, so you can go look at them yourselves. Fallout 2, Stacy of the Den talks about Cuddles, her pet cat, that was killed for food. A man in Broken Hills talks about his pet cat. And the Shark Club comedian makes a joke about a super mutant getting a cat out of a tree. In Fallout New Vegas, a cat can be seen in the slideshow within the sacrificial chamber in Vault 11. In Fallout 4, 2 cats in Catherine's room in Sandy Cove's convalescent home. Toro the cat is in the schoolhouse in Diamond City. Emmett can be found next to Proctor Quinlan's desk in the Pridwin. There is a cat inside of the Sleepwalker's house. Many cats can be found south of Grosky Cabin, along with a meat vendor at Walden Pond. Above the Colonial Tap House within Diamond City, the Hawthorne residence has 25 cats. Dora the cat can be found within Covenant. At Abernathy Farm, Maisie can be found. At South Boston Church, in front of a cat altar, there is a single cat. There's a cat near Ranger Cabin, near the Trader's Shack. Close to Pickman Galley, there are 2 cats, one within Mean Pastries and another in a cottage nearby. Mr. Pebbles is mentioned as the first space cat on some of the posters. 3 cats follow a veterinarian, Mr. Handy. And finally, Ashes of Vault 81. I believe this is the one kitty that most people know about and think about within Fallout 4. In Fallout 76, a cat named Cheswick can be found at the Wixon homestead. With the release of Wastelanders DLC, Cheswick 2 instead appears at Wixon homestead. Generic cats can be reliably found between 98 NAR Regional and Maybell Pond. 2 can be found in Scott's Shack at the south of Southern Bell Motel. 1 can be found at a billboard at the West Beckwith Farm on the edge of a cliff. Murgle claims a coffee hut in the Mount Blair region, directly between Mont Blair Train Yard and Welch Station. A painting on the counter may or may not be of Murgle that the cat sits and meows at. And then also in Wastelanders DLC, Tutti Frutti can be found in the Foundation, in the Founders Hall. Within Brotherhood of Steel, Mr. Pussy, a domestic cat, died in Carbon in Texas 2208. Ruby the prostitute wanted to find him when he got lost and asked the initiate to help. They discovered the cat's corpse in the Carbon crater and brought it back to Ruby. And finally, the cancelled Black Isle Studios Van Buren. In the nursery design document, various cats were to make an appearance, house cats kept by humans, as well as wild cats, bobcats, and panthers that were hostile to the players. A few interesting facts. Using the perk Animal Friend on a cat and attacking or getting caught stealing from a settlement, all settlers will attack the cat as though it was a threat, though it is not combat-enabled. With Wasteland Workshop add-on, a cat can be captured at any settlement via a cat cage. Once released, it will add 10 bonus happy points to the settlement, as much as some Tier 1 and Tier 2 stores. A beta wave emitter is not necessarily to tame them. Also, unlike all other captures, cats captured this way are protected. Fallout 4 is the first canon game in the series in which cats are still alive, Fallout Shelter being non-canon. Killed cats usually have cat meat in their inventory. Mr. House believes cats to be extinct as none can be found in the Mojave Desert. Cats are not hostile to the player character in any way. Cats are one of the few creatures in any Fallout game to be completely unaffected by radiation, at least externally. Some cats were possibly thrown into FEV vats by the Master in Mariposa military base and by Vault-Tec scientists in Vault 87, together with humans, dogs, and other animals. The misshapen centaurs are the result of the mix. This is a brief look into the weird and obscure lore of Fallout. Why are cats unaffected by radiation? I believe this to be an oversight, or just the way it is. I love cats more than most animals, and I'm glad that they're in the Fallout universe. Like the settlements, I gain happiness when my cat cuddles up to me. I hope to cover more weird stuff in the series on Lorecast, and I hope to see you all in the next episode of Lorecast. And Lorecast would not be possible without Devin of BeetleMilk and BeetleCast, who made the theme song, and his wife did the artwork for Lorecast. A big thank you to Chronicler177, who said his series on the Fallout lore would be good for Lorecast, and to Oxhorn, who I get told I sound a lot like, and who is a Fallout lore YouTuber. And to Podcast Evolved, one of the biggest influences to start my podcasting career. And most importantly, to you for listening and watching to this episode of Lorecast. Thank you all, and we'll see you in the next episode of Lorecast.